Hello, everybody. Welcome to our bi-weekly Subspace Developer Sync. This week we'll be going over some project highlights. We have some team-wide communication, and then we also have a couple of agenda items for kind of cross-team questions and such. So it's our second time with this new format. It's still an experiment. I would love feedback if anybody thinks of ways to improve it. The agenda is pretty light today, so it might be a pretty quick call. So I guess we'll go ahead and dig in and see. So to start off, I know we hit a pretty big project milestone. I'm going to let Nazar kind of fill in on that, but I'm going to go ahead. Nazar?
Yeah, we've been working on the specification for the new version of Consensus for a while, and then we've also worked on the implementation of that. And at this point, we have initial implementation merged into main of the monorepo, so that's a big milestone. And the next steps are to improve performance of that.
So I've saw there's been quite a bit of performance improvement. I think when we first started talking about, you had 2.3 initial implementation done, it was multiple seconds proving from your machine, which is much beefier than most machines. What do you have it down to now on your machine?
So it was about 1.2, 1.5 seconds proving time before, or like initial pull request. And right now it's about 0.5, 0.6 seconds on my machine, but it still doesn't use all the cores very efficiently. So I think we can still improve it quite a bit. And currently we are working with Dario on specification for Chia proof of space and the implementation of that. So we will throw away all the phases we don't need, and we'll try to optimize it for our use case as much as possible. And that should give us a good bump as well. And after that, we'll remeasure everything that we have, and we will try the next bottleneck.
All right. So then we get through that, then we get Gemini 3E coming out. So I think everybody's looking forward to seeing that with the new consensus. All right. Anybody, any questions on that for Nazar before we move on? Okay. Ved, why don't you give us an update? I know you've been working on kind of something a little different than we've had in the past with the EVM. So
Yeah. So last few weeks was spent into getting our own version of EVM domain running. There are some changes that pushed into main where right now if you use main, you could potentially start a core EVM domain, also connect your MetaMask to that domain, do some transfers as well, could deploy some contracts, but again, we are still working on the fee estimations to be correct. So some would ideally fail. We are trying to work out those stuff this week. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
it's exciting to see. I was kind of messing with it over the weekend, trying to test on that. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes this week and next. So any questions for Ved on that? All right. Well, anybody else have anything they'd like to highlight they were working on in the last couple of weeks before we move on to team communication? Okay, quiet group today. It's a quiet group every day. All right, so moving on to kind of some team-wide communications. First, last week, the leadership team was working on strategic planning for May. It really, we're just moving forward really with what we were already working on. In April, we have really our number one goal is to get a useful world deployed on the core EVM by the end of June. What that means for May is we want to get a world deployed on Gemini 3 by the end of May. That world can be as simple as a hello autonomous world, or more likely Mud's example incrementer, but just something deployed and out on Gemini 3. So that's going to require obviously core EVM working that Ved was just talking about, and getting it to work with mud, which hasn't been as straightforward as I was hoping. Yvonne will be helping with this as well, and I may actually be pulling in others who have familiarity with working in an Ethereum environment to help us out as well, just because we've run into quite a bit of issues with gas estimation and deployments with the mud contracts. The second kind of main goal for May is continue work on the AI initiative. So this last month was all about seeing what was possible, seeing what we could do, people having fun and experimenting. We had a couple of really cool, I guess more than a few really cool ideas come out of that we'll continue to work on. This month it's going to shift more into implementation and really starting to even highlight in the community what we're working on. So for instance, we'll be tweeting about Surge's Repo Ranger, and be encouraging you, Surge, to continue to work on that. So if you want to brainstorm ideas and such, I have some. And for everybody, from the last workshop, we had some ideas come out of that. So Yvonne, specifically the support GPT, working with Justin to kind of see how feasible that is and what the first steps would be towards an implementation. Again, we'll be highlighting this publicly. So expect to see some of your work being tweeted about. And the other kind of newer initiative coming out of or sub-initiative is this concept of a subspace OS that's going to be driven by AI. It's a very kind of loose definition right now of what that is, but hopefully in the next week or so, we'll get some more concrete example or idea formation around that. But it's really going to be more of how do we take everything that is subspace and make that available to be worked with AI. So is that whether that's like vector embeddings and or it's using Cody, not Cody from SourceGraph, but Cody, the other Cody, meetcody.ai. So that was it for the kind of the two main initiatives coming out of the strategic planning. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? Anybody got any new AI ideas coming up over the weekend? Has anybody played with LangChain? I saw Serge posted something about it this morning when using somebody built a trading I guess like Uniswap interactor with, I don't know how you'd call that, but they built it with LangChain. What was that about, Serge?
Yeah, so LangChain is like a Python framework to interact with OpenAI or potentially other LLMs. So I'm currently trying to dive deeper. Haven't built anything yet.
I built a couple of the examples with LangChain this weekend, so using the JavaScript version. I haven't messed with the Python much. Yvonne, were you gonna?
Yeah, I also tried it. I tried to make a voice assistant with that. Like it's really good so far.
Okay, cool. All right. I know we had, well, they're not on the agenda here, but I'm gonna go ahead and bring them up. First, Parth, I think you had some questions maybe that would benefit from some cross-team discussion around the Light client that you've been working.
Yeah, so specifically, I did some preliminary research on how I can port the SP Lite client to in Solidity. While I did went through the crates and figure out which cryptographic primitives we are using. If possible, if this is documented somewhere, I would like to know the exact like list of cryptographic primitives that we are using, so that what I want to do is I want to see if how feasible is to implement the same on Solidity side, whether in form of precompile or is there a well-known library. Because if there is some cryptographic primitive that is not possible, like not possible at all on Ethereum, then we might not be able to build a light client in of Subspace on Ethereum side. I think Nazar can help me with this.
Yeah, the biggest challenge I think will be around KZG and the fact that we are using quite big domains there. We already don't embed public parameters in our KZG stuff into the runtime. We are calling host functions. So
So if
That
the
won't be a
light client
challenge.
is going to be only like the verifier that does not produce blocks, the verifier's public parameters are much smaller than the signer's public parameters for KZG. However, there's still like Blake 2 for the hash. And potentially with the proof of space, there's also Blake 3, which is much larger memory footprint. However, with proof of space, again, it's Black 3 just because Chia uses Black 3. We didn't have to. We could switch back to Black 2 if it's more lightweight. But yeah.
Well, with KZG, we are using one set of public parameters, so it's the same public parameters for everything, regardless of big or small number of items.
True. I'm just saying that the verifier does not need all of them, so we could split out the verifier's part for light client specifically.
Okay.
Would be the best way to kind of facilitate this information share, or
We can.
I mean, we have a spec. I think reading the spec will be the very first step.
Okay.
Maybe watching the implementation guide as well, or like presentation, and then probably asking questions and reading the ESP light client where we had implemented all of the steps.
is it updated with the latest?
It is. Yeah.
All right. That was all I had for this week. Does anybody else have anything? I'm going to assume no, because everyone's been so quiet today. All right. Well, we will see everyone again in 2 weeks. It was great seeing you.